Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I'm going to share with you books that I want to read in 2021. Now, there are a lot of books I want to read this year, but these are ones that I really want to prioritize and make sure that I find some time slot to read them at some point this year. A lot of people have been putting these videos out recently, titling them things like 21 books I want to read for 2021. I'm going to scale back a little bit because I don't want to set myself up for failure. So I have chosen 10 books that I really want to get to this year. I have 4 nonfictions and 6 fictions. The first one is Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. This is a book about feminism, of course, but specifically about intersectional feminism and how kind of like mainstream feminism, I guess you could call it, is really white feminism and often leaves behind and leaves out and excludes, I guess is the word here, Black women and other marginalized women. So I am really interested to read this. I love reading nonfiction work about feminism, but I haven't read anything that was quite so specifically intersectional. So this is something I really want to read this year. The second nonfiction book I want to read is Inside This Place, Not of It by Robin Levi. So this is a book that tells a story, or stories, I guess, of different women who have been incarcerated. And I'm interested in women's stories and feminism, but I'm also interested in, what do you call that? Like the prison industrial complex and how people, like how prisons are used to keep marginalized people down. And a lot of the stories that are out there about prisons tend to focus on the male experience of the prison system. And so this one focuses on women's stories in prison. And that is just something I really, really want to learn more about. The third nonfiction that I want to read is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. So I became aware of this book quite a while ago through a friend. And for whatever reason, it just completely fell off my priority list, or it kind of got pushed to the back burner. And I never read it last year. And then so many people read it last year and raved about it. I have not heard one bad review of this yet. So it's really rekindled my desire to pick this book up. So I guess I should tell you what it's about, but you've probably heard from other people. This is the memoir, Chanel Miller's memoir of her experience going through the criminal justice system. She was the victim of sexual assault in a very publicized case, the Stanford rape trial, if you remember this from a few years back. And at the time, she was like a Jane Doe or something. They didn't print her name, and this is her kind of telling her own story of what happened specifically regarding the crap she had to go through in the trial and how victims of sexual assault are traumatized through that system. And the last nonfiction, number 4, that I want to read in 2021 is Pain and Prejudice by Gabrielle Jackson. So this is a nonfiction about women's health, or women in the medical system, I guess, as patients. Women are often not believed, our symptoms downplayed. We get a lot of misdiagnosis, and pain in women is often not taken seriously. A lot of healthcare professionals will believe that it's all in a woman's head, or that it's something related to like mood or emotion versus an actual physical problem of pain. And so that's what this book talks about, of how women are not believed by medical professionals or things aren't taken seriously from the get-go. I believe, I don't know if it was the author or if it was a friend of hers, she shares, I think, some anecdote alongside with more like studies and more evidence. But there is an anecdote, I believe, in here about a woman's struggle to get diagnosed with something. She had excruciating pain for years, and it took her 10 years to get diagnosed with, I believe it was endometriosis. So I'm really interested again in like women's issues and nonfiction about women, and this is just something that I think I'm probably going to end up rage reading, but I'm very interested to read that. So on to the 6 fiction books that I definitely want to read this year. The first is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I can't tell you much about this. I know that it's a dystopian. I've heard there's a big twist in this, and that it's really easy to get spoiled for it if you like read blurbs and stuff. So I haven't read anything about this. I am going purely on recommendation, like hearing people on BookTube talk about how much they love this book. I love dystopians. And Kazuo Ishiguro is one of those writers who is on my list of writers that I haven't read yet that I want to read. So this one is definitely getting read this year because it is one of the picks for my in real life book club. So we are definitely reading it at some point this year, and I can't wait to figure out what this is about. And yeah, just like super, super excited for this one. The next fiction that I want to read is Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. I haven't heard as many people talk about Silver Sparrow. Tayari Jones's other book, An American Marriage, got a lot of hype and a lot of people raved about it last year. And I think maybe the year before. I can't remember when that book came out. But I haven't heard as much about Silver Sparrow. I think Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings had talked about this one maybe. Someone talked about it and said it was really good. And I found it in a little free library last year. And so I snagged it. And it is about 2 sisters whose father is a bigamist. One of them knows about the other family, about the other sister, and the other family does not know about the other, like the first family's existence. So it just sounds like a very intriguing premise, and because people are saying wonderful things about this author's writing, I definitely want to make this a priority this year. The third fiction book that I want to read this year is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I know this is like super old, and why haven't I read this yet? I am a Stephen King fan. I also am a horror fan, and this is one of his, better known books, but also fans of Stephen King say that this is one of his better horror books, and it really holds up. So I really, as a King fan, think that I should read it. I'll probably save it for October, but I don't know. I mentioned this in another video at some point of horror books, I think. 5 horror books that I wanted to read, maybe. And it's just one that I haven't been spoiled for yet. And seeing as how it's been out for so long, I'm kind of pushing my luck. And I should really read it before I get spoiled for it. So yeah, so this is probably one that I will save for spooky season. The 4th fiction book that I want to read this year is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I have wanted to read this for quite a while. I've heard that it's very gothic, which is something that I tend to enjoy. And also, I think it was written in the 20s or 30s. I can't quite remember. I think it was. And that is a time period that I have a lot of interest in. I like books set in that time period, and I also like books written in that time period. And I think this one was. I don't know a lot about this because I heard there are some twists and turns in this book, and it's one of those ones that it's easy to get spoiled on. So I haven't really read much about it. I know it's about a woman who moves in with her new husband, and she's not literally haunted, I don't think, but kind of haunted by the presence of the previous wife, as in everyone keeps talking about her, about the previous wife, Rebecca, and she can't seem to like shake the presence of her husband's first wife. And so it sounds like a little bit eerie, which is right up my alley. And my interest in this got rekindled again last year when everyone was talking about it, because everyone was reading it before they watched the adaptation of Rebecca that came out last year. So that kind of pushed it back up to the top of my priority list. So I want to get to that this year. The fifth fiction book that I want to read is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. And this is either a middle grade or a YA that also sounds dystopian to me. It's set in a world where monsters no longer exist. All monsters have been banished, taken care of, whatever. But then one day, the protagonist in the story, a young girl called Jam, one of her mother's paintings comes to life, this creature called Pet, and Pet says that there is a monster nearby that they have to go hunt. So there's some like magical realism here, which I'm really into. I enjoy middle grade books. I'm not sure if this is middle grade or YA. And everyone says this is like really, really good. Even people that I know aren't typically into YA or middle grade. So I am super excited to read like a younger dystopian. And I've heard there's like really good representation in this book too. And Akwaeke Emezi is a writer that I haven't read yet that I'm very eager to read. So the sixth fiction book and the last book on my list is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. And this is another dystopian, surprise, surprise. And it is set in the north. I don't know if it's northern Canada or Alaska, but it's set in the north in an indigenous community. And something has happened. Maybe it's not dystopian. It might be more post-apocalyptic, which I'm also into. But something has happened in the world, and there are people who are flocking north, coming north to this community to like survive, for shelter, for refuge, and the community has to kind of navigate all of these people and like keeping themselves safe. It just sounds all very tense, and that's something that I usually really like in a book. And also I am trying to read a lot more Indigenous authors this year, and I haven't read from this author yet, so I am very interested in how that story is going to play out, and I can't wait to read it and bite my nails. So those are the 10 books that I really, really want to get to in 2021. If you have made a similar video of what you want to prioritize reading this year, please let me know. Or if you don't have a channel, just let me know in a comment what books you are desperate to read this year. I would really like to know. And thanks again for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.